Hey, everybody, it's Eddie from Tokyo. This is your cryptocurrency update from Japan. Well, the news is always interesting, and today is no different. This is a very sobering 5-minute speech by the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell today. He announced that they are going to do a 25 basis point cut in the interest rates. And he was defending that decision for nearly 40 minutes in a question and answer. Based on the global development for the economic outlook, it doesn't look so good. Manufacturing output has been down for 2 quarters in a row. The core inflation rate has dropped to 1.6% off that 2% target. With further delay, he believes that it could be a worrisome downward slide and difficult to reverse. Wages also are not rising fast enough to keep pace. And even though he says there is a still favorable baseline outlook, I don't believe it. This is a risk management move, according to the answers from the questions. They are going to keep looking at the data, so he wouldn't commit to any future position in terms of more cuts to follow. But I think we are in for a bumpy ride, and it's very clear that things don't look very stable. This is the first time we've seen a cut since 2008, right before we had the big financial crash. So I hope this isn't another foresign of the telling of future problems, but it doesn't look good to me. And then also there is an interesting letter that has been uncovered by Politico. If you remember, back on the 24th, Mr. Powell was asked by senators, why is the Fed mulling its own real-time payment system? It is competing with a system that is being built by the clearinghouse payments, and they have invested over $1 billion thus far. And so the senators wanted to know why they would escalate the tensions between the two, and how is this moving forward seriously going to be a development that helps the entire payment system. So the big focus was whether or not they were committed to exploring interoperability with the private banks. And their main focus right now, or their main concern, is that the clearinghouse payments isn't going to be able to reach all of these private banks. And they really want to reach, because they are connected to the 10,000 across the nation. And if the feds proceed, the next step would be to request formal comments. And you can see with today's news, it looks like they are seriously going to move forward, because the statements are coming out that they are considering this. And with the combination of the letter, you can see that back in November 2018, they had over 90% of the comments, some 350, were in support of the Federal Reserve to build their real-time gross settlement service for faster payments. So in this letter, he touches on some of the questions that were asked of him by the senators on the 24th, and the answers weren't quite, I think, where he wanted to be. And this is in regards to giving a little more detail. So he was asked why the Federal Reserve is proposing a government-run system, and how does the government believe that it will still support innovation with the private sector. And operating alongside as support is how the feds see their role here. They want to provide accessibility, safety, and efficiency. And again, it's restated that the Federal Reserve has more than 10,000 banks in its infrastructure, and reaching the smaller banks across the country are very important to them. And when he was asked, how long will it take to build this competing system? Well, he responded that he knew it needed to be done ASAP, but still he wouldn't commit to a timeline. He said he had to gather more input. And explaining why the Federal Reserve System would be interoperable, they asked if that would be guaranteed. And the answer was, well, maybe what they see is that banks would have a choice to choose based on fees, functionality, etc. This is a picture of Christine Lagarde, of course, and Mr. Powell at the G20 meeting in Argentina. And you just really can't help but wonder, is this an opportunity for Ripple? Or is there already something in the works of the Federal Reserve working with Ripple to customize a faster payments system for them? I think that it's very possible, and there is no doubt an opportunity for Ripple to seize this moment. There are so many factors that are pushing the Federal Reserve now to move quickly, not only just a shaky economy, but also the fact that they are getting pressure on all sides to create this system. And I think building it from scratch just doesn't make any sense to me. So I would venture to guess that Ripple has a play here. And this is an article that is floating around today in Japan. It's from Cointelegraph Japan, and it talks about an article that was written in Forbes that Japan holds the virtual currency Bitcoin's fate. And it was written by someone who lives here in Japan. He's a well-known writer. And it was based on some comments that were made at the G7 by Asotaro. He is the finance minister and is at the top of everything going on when it comes to cryptocurrency in Japan. This is the gentleman that wrote the article. This is William Pasek, often called Willie. He is a columnist. He's an author. He used to write for Barron's and Bloomberg. And the Forbes article is, I happen to agree with everything he says. He really does know Japan well. He knows that this is the most risk-adverse country when it comes to finance, but Japan is really going its own way. And this is because Japan is searching to reinvent themselves in this changing environment. Blockchain is an incredible business opportunity for Japan. This space gives them the chance to be a financial hub, and they are really thinking with creativity when it comes to regulatory action. They have an open mind, and in 1 to 2 years, I think Japan just very well could be positioned to be the center of it all. And this is what Willie Pasek talks about in his podcast, which is why Japan may be Zuckerberg's best friend right now. Anyway, this is a good interview. If you're into podcasts, it's enjoyable to listen to. I'll put a link to it in the description below. But the point, there's so many points I agree with him because he really knows what he's talking about, and he really understands Japan. The microcosm of Japan is really interesting because it is a country that goes in lockstep without any trouble, actually, with old and new. It works hand in hand with both, and it has, if you will, interoperability in that way. And I think that Japan is not going to let this moment pass them by. Okay, I know that there is a lot of talk and buzz going around with a Rothschild's fund that showed SBI holdings in it. And now that is not so unusual because the SBI holdings is in a lot of funds out there. BlackRock is carrying them in their fund. Also, the Norwegian government pension fund, you'll find SBI holdings there. There's just lots of places that SBI is being held. But of course, with the name of Rothschild, I think it got a lot of eyeballs because they are a big brand when it comes to asset management. They have 76 billion Swiss francs in assets under management. They've been doing it for 60 years, and they have a lot of expertise. So if we look specifically where they are ranked, you can see they are number one by the number of deals, and then they rank sixth position in terms of revenue. They are preceded by Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Evercore, and Lazard. So they are definitely an important brand for that institutional investor. And when they do choose to put a company in their fund, you need to know that they do a lot of due diligence, and it's nice to know that they think that SBI has some potential. So this is the actual document that was floating around. You can see here that among the new issues that they added, the notable contribution to performance was the Japanese financial service company SBI Holdings. And if I take you down to the actual list here, you can see that, let me see if I can find it. Here we go. Out of Japan, they hold ANA, which is All Nippon Airlines. That's one of the flagship airlines out of Japan. There's Sumitomo Metal Group, which is a big steel company. And Unicharm, which is kind of funny. They are an adult diapers manufacturer. Yeah, well, it's an aging society. What can I tell you? The Sumitomo is interesting. They have been in mining back to 1590. They are now doing a lot of mineral resources, smelting and refining. They are a powerhouse of a company. And if I take you to a Fund Global Convertibles comment from August 2018, this is when they were first put in as a new position. You can see they were added along with this company Illumina, which is unlocking the genome for cancer research and also for agriculture. And then you have Kunlun Energy. They are a Chinese petroleum company. Mercado Libre, really interesting company. They're in Argentina. They just raised $1.85 billion, and they are an e-commerce technology company. And then there's PCLN. They're a travel site aggregator. So what we're going to really want to look at is the next comments that come for this particular Edmond de Rothschild's asset management fund. And we'll be able to see if they have strengthened the position on SBI, or if they have sold SBI, or if they have reduced SBI. So this is really going to tell us a lot when we see the next report. Okay, everybody, there is some information for Swell. So the new date we know is November 7th and 8th. They have actually created an outline for the agenda. It's being held in Singapore. And should you want to go, just go ahead and click on this request invite, and you can give them your name, your business email, the company, the title, and the country, and submit, and you'll hear back probably within 48 hours. I submitted last year. The biggest difference is last year they asked for your LinkedIn. I thought that was interesting. They're not asking for that this year. I got an answer back very quick, and it was like a very polite no thank you. So I submitted again. We'll see. I think that someone like myself is probably the last person they want to see walking around reporting back to the community. Yeah, I don't think I would say 99.9% sure I am going to get a no thank you. Polite, but no thank you. All right, talking about meetups, look at this. This is fun, huh? This is the Japan meetup that's going to take place in November. Everybody from the XRP community is invited. I think it's going to be amazing. There are almost 700 people that say they're going. So the venue has, must be able to accommodate that kind of number. I have no idea. It'll probably end up at a hotel. That's my guess. That's my guess. But there's a lot of events planned, and there are surprises planned, and a lot of things that the organizers say they can't talk about. I have a feeling there's going to be some special guests there. It's a huge community-sponsored meeting, and gosh, I'm going, of course. And if any of you who are not living in Japan come to Tokyo at this time. How fun would that be? All right, I'm jumping to the fluff, everybody. And the fluff is something about Japan in terms of culture. This is coming from a request. I got a request for doing netsuke. And netsuke is a piece of carved miniature sculpture. Sometimes it's done from wood, sometimes from bone, sometimes from a fossilized root. It can be anything. In the days of old, 2, 3, 4, 500 years ago, it was usually carved from ivory, but we know that that is not the material of choice these days. But this is a men's kimono, or hakama is called, and this is how they were worn. It was a fashion statement in the 15 and 1600s, and it also functioned to keep your box from falling. And so it kind of like a button, but it was more fashionable than just a button. And you were then able to move freely without holding on to this box, which was lacquered, and it could have anything from money to tobacco to medicine to it could hold anything. It was like a version of a men's large wallet, but it was in the form of a lacquered box. Really beautiful. You can still buy these. They can be very expensive if the condition is good. But here you see the netsuke at the top. And the netsukes look something like this. This is one I found that I think is just fabulous. It is a basket with, this looks like a Thai fish called Thai, and then an octopus. And the detail on them are always exquisite. And then you also can see this is one that we're looking at through a lens to magnify the detail, and they're just spectacular, aren't they? You can still buy them. They circulate in the antiques, in the antique shops and the world of collectors. They're very, very, very popular. There is a place in Tokyo, in Yotsuya, which is in the middle of the city, that has ones that you can see on display, and they are for sale. I chose the sumo wrestler because everybody knows I love sumo. They are always a little humorous, just to let you know. They have a sense of humor to them. They're also, well, they come in all shapes and sizes, but this is obviously one that dates back to probably the 16th or 17th century. Yeah. And if you are interested in knowing more about it, there's an international netsuke society, and you'll find that there are exhibitions all over the world. There's a big one coming up in Paris, but if you are, yeah, I think this fall, the one in Paris. If you are interested in this, just go on to Pinterest or go on to eBay or sign up and become a member of the International Netsuke Society and enjoy this beautiful art form. All right, everybody, do take care. Sayonara for now. Bye-bye.